And today we're going to have Cynthia Adrian from the Idaho State Tax Commission and Don Baltadonis from TAS, Taxpayer Advocacy Service from the IRS. And they'll be talking to you about what you need to know as far as filing for the 2021 income taxes. And with that, let me give the presenter ball to Cynthia and we can get started. Go.
Okay. Can everybody hear me? Steve, you got me?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect. Like new headset. Last time I felt like I was yelling at everybody. So
it sounds good this time, yeah.
Now I have a better headset, so hopefully this works a little bit better for everybody. So good afternoon. Glad for everybody to join us. We are going to talk about today getting ready to file your 2021 taxes. So it is that season. Time, and I know I've been getting all of my documents gathered together as they've been coming in the mail, so it's that time of the year. So let's talk a little bit about filing those taxes, the dreaded time of the year. So the IRS and the Tax Commission began processing returns on January the 24th. One thing that I would want to mention to you is that you need to complete your federal return before you even start your Idaho return. Especially if you are an Idaho resident, we begin with a number that's on that federal return to start your Idaho return. So it's always a good thing to just go ahead and get that federal return done first, and then you can move on to your Idaho return and get that started. So this is a screenshot of our homepage at tax.idaho.gov. This gives you a lot of information. There's information about how to get forms, about refund status. If you're getting a refund, you can always click there and get the most up-to-date information about where your refund is. It's probably best to do that. If you call in, we're going to give you the same information as if you clicked on there to get your information. So probably even a better idea just to click here and get your information on your refund. You can pay your taxes using this home screen. There's, like I said, a lot of stuff here, and we'll go through a lot of the things that I was just talking about here in just a few minutes, but I just wanted to give you a little preview of what this page looks like and where to go to find it. Another thing that's on our home page is some helpful tax videos. And these are short videos. We're talking 2 to 3 minutes. And it can tell you about, where's your refund, what's slowing down my refund, how you find your individual income tax forms. There's just a whole bunch of these short videos that answer a lot of questions that people have. So we found that they're very helpful for taxpayers to go out and get an idea. It doesn't have probably everything maybe that you're looking for, but it might give you an idea. It answers some of the main questions, and then you can maybe call us or send us an email and ask those more specific questions. So let's get into, well, do I actually need to file an Idaho income tax return? That's what a lot of people ask. So if you're an Idaho resident, you will need to file an Idaho tax return. And what makes you an Idaho resident? Well, if you think of Idaho as your permanent home, it's the center of your family, social, and financial life, and it's the place you intend to return to when you're away. So when you come back from vacation, you're coming back to Idaho. This is where you have your checking account. It's where your kids go to school. It's where you vote. It's where you register your car. Those kind of things are things we look at for residency. So if you're an Idaho resident, you more than likely will have to file an Idaho return. You're also a resident if you maintain a home in Idaho the entire year and you spend more than 270 days here during the tax year. So maybe you have a home here in Idaho, but you go to Arizona for the winter. So, if you spend at least 270 days here and you maintain a home here, then you are considered an Idaho resident. Maybe you travel for work, but that goes back to where we were talking about. It's the place you intend to return to when you're away. So when you're away on work, you come back to Idaho. You are an Idaho resident. So I was saying that you more than likely as an Idaho resident would need to file an Idaho tax return. If you file a federal return, you need to file an Idaho tax return. So just keep that in mind. And again, start the federal one first and then use that information for your Idaho return. So then the question is, do I really need to file? Well, this is a table that shows resident filing requirements. So it goes on your filing status, if you're single, if you're married joint, if you're head of household, qualifying widower, and then you look at your age and what your gross income is for each of those scenarios. And this is a quick little table. It's actually in our individual income tax booklets, and is just really helpful to determine if you really need to file. So what's the difference between a full-year resident and a part-year resident? So a part-year resident is if you were a resident and you moved out of Idaho, you moved back to Idaho after a temporary absence, or you've moved into Idaho, which we've had a lot of people moving into Idaho. So maybe you lived in Montana for part of the year but moved to Idaho. Maybe you lived in Oregon, Washington, whatever state, but you've moved to Idaho and this is now your permanent residence. You are a part-year Idaho resident. So what's different about a part-year resident? For tax purposes, a resident is taxed on all income sources, and if you're a non-resident, you're taxed only on Idaho income sources. So a part-year resident is kind of a hybrid between a resident and a non-resident. You're a resident for part of the year, but you're technically a non-resident for the other part of the year. So if those two income sources, your resident all income and non-resident Idaho income equals more than $2,500, then you need to file an Idaho part-year resident return. So then let's talk a little bit about non-residents. And you're going to ask, well, why would a non-resident need to file a return? Well, let's talk about what a non-resident is first. You're a non-resident if your permanent home was outside Idaho for the entire year. So let's say you live in South Carolina, and that's where your home is. That's where you bank, you pay taxes. You could pay taxes, I guess, in other places too, but that's where you bank, it's where you vote, it's where you register your car, all of those things. So you're not an Idaho resident, but let's move to the next slide. You might have a rental property, say here in Idaho. Maybe you are a partner in an Idaho partnership and you have income from that partnership that you pay tax on. So you would need to file an Idaho tax return as a non-resident if you have more than that $2,500 in Idaho source income. So you could have even wages earned in Idaho as a non-resident, or like I said, any rental income, any business income. So that's the deal about non-residents. So let's talk a little bit about active duty military. They're kind of a special category, and we in Idaho tax active duty military personnel and spouses depending on where their domicile state is. And I know domicile is one of those words that we talk about a lot here at the Tax Commission, and I'm not sure people outside of the Tax Commission talk about it, but domicile is just basically what we were talking about almost for residency. Domicile is where, and at the Tax Commission we always say, where are the things that are near and dear to you? So where's your family, where's all your stuff, all of that. So if all of that stuff is in Idaho, you're domiciled in Idaho, and you're an Idaho resident. You could have your domicile in another state, and that would mean you're a military non-resident. It means that you, and I believe in the military they call it home of record. But if you're domiciled in another state, that's where you're going to return to when your stint in Idaho is done. So say you're at Mountain Home the Mountain Home base, and so you're only there in Idaho until your tour of duty, if you want to call it that, is done, and then you're going back to South Carolina. So you're a military non-resident because everything that's near to you basically is in South Carolina. You're only here because of your orders. So for an Idaho resident, Idaho taxes the military and non-military income earned in Idaho. We don't tax military pay that residents stationed outside Idaho earn, and we tax income that spouses earned in Idaho if they're an Idaho resident. For military non-residents, we don't tax active duty military pay. We do tax other income received from Idaho sources, so anything that you earned from an Idaho source. But we don't tax income a spouse earns in Idaho if the spouse and service member have the same domicile state. Again, domicile state maybe being South Carolina. If your spouse is also a resident and has their domicile in South Carolina, we wouldn't tax that income. Okay, so that's a little bit about, excuse me guys, had kind of a frog in my throat. So that's just a little bit about military. If there is anything else that you need to know about military, just let us know, kind of give us an email or something. There's a lot more that's involved with military, so you may have other questions if that pertains to you. So another time that you might want to file a return, so I told you when you have to file a return, but there may be times that you would want to file a return. And that would be as if you had Idaho tax, and we're showing with these red circles or ovals where the state income tax is on W-2s. And if you have tax, Idaho tax that's been withheld, but you don't actually have enough income to have to file, you might want to go ahead and file just to get that tax back. So that might be an idea for you. Again, here's another screenshot of our website. And what we circled here is the forms, and that's a quick way to find our individual income tax forms and our business income tax forms. So I was talking a little bit ago about I've kind of gotten a lot of my forms already to do my taxes. I'm not saying I've done my taxes yet, but I do have a lot of those documents. And what I normally do is when the year starts and I get my W-2, I will get me a manila envelope. I write, for this year, I've written 2021 on it because that's the tax year we're going to be filing. And so you would gather up all of your information as it comes in, and I just stick it in my manila envelope. And then when I get ready to sit down and do my taxes, I'll sit down at the kitchen table, grab my computer, and I grab my manila envelope, and everything I need is right there. I also usually grab my last year's folder because it has a copy of my last year's return in it. So I will grab that just to make sure I don't miss something and sit down. So like I said, most forms are sent by February 1st. That says 2021. It should be 2022 because we are now in 2022. But most forms are sent by February 1st. If you have stocks, things like that, that are at a brokerage firm, you may not get those until about the end of February. But W-2s and those kind of things are usually sent by the 1st of February. If you've moved, make sure to update your address, not only with your former employers, but with your bank, because the banks are going to be sending you those 1099 INTs. That's for interest if you have any interest-bearing accounts. And so if you are expecting some of those and you're not getting them, just make sure that you've updated your address, especially if you've moved. The other thing is if you don't get a form that you're expecting to get, contact the sender. Don't contact us. You have to get those copies of those documents from who you're expecting them from. So make sure you contact the sender to get those forms. And we're going to go through a little bit of those documents, I guess, that you could expect to find in your mailbox at some point. So a W-2, 1099-G if you've gotten unemployment at any point in the year. We were talking about 1099 INTs, that's interest from banks. 1099-Ds are those brokerage statements. 1099-Ds are dividends. Those are sometimes included with brokerage, or usually included with brokerage statements if you have any kind of stocks that you get dividends on. A1s if you are a partner or a shareholder in either a partnership or an S-Corp. If you're getting retirement, so a 1099-R. Again, mortgage interest, tuition statements, all of those kind of documents that you may get in the mail. The other thing you want to make sure to keep are receipts that you have from any charitable contributions that you've made, any receipts for medical expenses, and if you're self-employed, of course, receipts for your self-employed expenses. So there's a lot of things to keep track of. So like I said, I usually stick mine in a manila envelope. It's just easy to put them all in there, and then I don't have to worry about it when I get ready to sit down and file my return. One of the things is sometimes people want to use a tax preparer. They get a little intimidated with looking at the forms and all of the instructions and go, I'm just going to have somebody do it. So if you decide to use a tax preparer, make sure that you bring your Social Security card with you, as well as any dependents that you have. Make sure you bring those Social Security cards. Make sure you have birth dates for everybody. Driver's licenses for both the taxpayer and the spouse. That's something that is being required, I think, on federal and asked for. So make sure you have that information. All your tax documents, again, like I said, my manila envelope is what I would bring with me. A copy of last year's tax return, that's my last year's manila envelope. And then if you happen to be divorced, any custody agreements that you have. If you're going to use this preparer and maybe it's not the same preparer that you had last year, make sure you tell your preparer if you've moved, if you've gotten married or divorced, if you had a child or adopted a child, you bought a house. I mean, there's just, you know, a lot of things that they may ask you questions about. So just be prepared if you go to a tax preparer that they're going to ask you some questions, and it's all because they need all of this information to make sure they get the most accurate return prepared for you. So again, let's look at taxable income. So for residents, what's taxable? All sources of income is taxable in Idaho. So for a non-resident, again, as we were talking, only Idaho source income. For a part year, like I said, it's a hybrid. So it's all sources while you're a resident and Idaho sources while you're a non-resident. So that's kind of a rundown there. So what's taxable income? Taxable income is, of course, your wages. So when you go to your job every day and you earn your wages, those are taxable income. Unemployment. A lot of people don't realize that unemployment is taxable. And the way that I always look at it is you are getting unemployment kind of in lieu of wages. While you're not working, you're getting this money. It may not be, and more than likely it's not the same as what you would earn if you were at a job, but it's something that you're getting to replace the income that you're not getting. So it is taxable. Retirement withdrawals are taxable. Of course, business income and side gig income. So if you drive for Uber or DoorDash, or you sell something on like Etsy, someplace like that, then that's considered side gig income, and you would need to pay tax on that as well. So like I said a while ago, it's a really good idea to be organized, especially if you have some of this either business or side gig income, just to make sure that you keep all of the receipts for expenses and everything all in one place when you're ready to file. So here's just a little chart that we made up for kind of ease of people seeing this. Taxable is unemployment, like I was saying. Not taxable is those Idaho tax rebates, which we got last year, as well as we're going to get one for full-year Idaho residents for this next year. So we will be sending those out soon. I'm not exactly sure when, but I know that those are in the works. And the bill that the governor has signed the bill for it at least, so we do know that they're coming, just don't know exactly when. And again, then those federal economic stimulus payments, those are not taxable either. So just kind of a handy-dandy little chart for you there. Grocery credit. Idaho has a grocery tax credit, and it reduces the taxes you owe or adds to your refund. So it's for resident and part-year residents. It's up to $100 for people under 65 and up to $120 for people over 65, and it also includes dependents. So, for example, if you're a married couple with 2 kids, you would have, and we're Idaho residents for the full year, you would have a $400 grocery credit. And part-year residents get the grocery credit for the time they're Idaho residents. If the taxpayer was deceased during the year or a child was born during the year, you get the full year grocery credit. And in our booklet, there's a few stipulations of people who don't get the full year. If you were incarcerated for any reason for part of a year, if you received food stamps, those kind of things, you don't qualify for the full year. It's only for the time that you aren't either incarcerated or aren't getting those food stamps. So again, I said you get the grocery credit if you're a part-year resident or a resident. And then if you're not required to file an Idaho income tax return, you can still get your grocery credit by filing a Form 24. And that's just a one-page form that you can fill out, and like I said, you can still get your grocery credit even though you don't have to file an Idaho income tax return. So switching gears a little bit, there are a few things. Well, the grocery credit, I guess, was just something that was just for Idaho, but there are a few more things that I wanted to discuss, and one of them is a first-time homebuyer's deduction, the college savings deduction that we have, and then the employer college savings contribution. So we'll look at those one at a time here. So the first-time homebuyers is eligible for first-time Idaho homebuyers. You can get a deduction on your Idaho tax return. And you qualify by it being your first home purchased. So that means you've never owned a home before anywhere. You can't have moved over to Idaho and bought a house in Idaho and said, oh, I'm a first-time Idaho home buyer. Well, yeah, you are. But if you moved from Oregon and you had a house in Oregon that you sold, you're not considered a first-time home buyer. You've owned a home somewhere before. So you have to be a bona fide first-time home buyer. You have to live in Idaho, and you have to have filed an Idaho income tax return for the most recent tax year. And it has to be a first-time home buyer's account at an Idaho bank or financial institution. So I do know a few of the financial institutions that have contacted me about, there's actually a form that they have to fill out about withdrawals from these accounts. So I do know of a few financial institutions around that do these. I don't know that every financial institution does, so if you're interested in one, you might need to shop around and find out who exactly has these first-time home buyers accounts. So how does it work? What you do is you can contribute up to $15,000 or $30,000 if you're married filing jointly each year. You get to take a deduction on your tax return for your contributions and the interest that you earn on this account. You can deposit up to $100,000 over the life of the account, and then you have to use the money to pay eligible home buying costs. So things like a down payment, all of those costs and fees and taxes when you are purchasing a house, you know, they want an appraisal fee and they want all of these things. So as long as the money is being paid for eligible home buying costs, you can use that money and take a withdrawal and use it for those costs. And of course, there's more information and specific details about this on our website. One of the things I do want to mention is, what if you decide you've put money in this account and after a while you decide, you know, I've just decided I don't want to buy a house, but I've got $50,000 sitting in this account. So I think I'm going to take it and put it in on a new car, provided you can find a place to buy a new car. I think those are kind of hard to come by these days. But anyway, if you use the money for something other than home buying costs, then you have to add back. You have to remember you've taken a deduction for those contributions and that interest you've earned on this account. So you're going to have to add that back as income on the tax return that you file for the year when you take that money out to buy that new car. So just be aware of that. So let's look at the Idaho College Savings deduction. So the program is called IDEAL, and there is a lot more information about it on their website. I would encourage you, if you have questions about this college savings program, to actually go to the IDEAL people. They're the ones who deal with it a lot more than we do. There is information on our website, a lot of information, but again, like I said, they deal with it on a daily basis. So what it is a savings program where you can set up an account and then you can deduct the contributions on your Idaho income tax return. And that's up to $6,000 a year or $12,000 if you're married filing jointly. And again, those funds need to be used to pay qualified education expenses. What is a qualified education expense? Well, again, like I said, there's a lot more information on our website and the IDEAL website that tells you what those qualified education expenses are. And then the other thing that happened, I can't remember if it was last year, I think it was maybe the year before, that employers can now get a tax credit if they contribute to an employee's IDEAL account. So say you're an employee and your employer says, you know, I'm going to, you know, put in $100 to your IDEAL account. They can now get a tax credit for those contributions. So, how do I file my return? After I've gotten it all put together, how do I file it? And we've got mail first, and that's our least favorite way to get your tax return. We would much rather that you e-file, but there are still people who like to mail them. So if you are going to mail it, make sure you include copies of all your W-2s, your 1099s, and a copy of your federal return. And make sure it's postmarked by April 18th this year. So, and again, if you need to find forms, they are on our website. Like I said, our most favorite way to get a return is to e-file it. It's secure. You aren't mailing those documents with your Social Security number. You remember, if you stick that tax return in the mail, it's got your Social Security numbers on it. Now it has your driver's license number on it. And it has your dependents information on it. It has birth dates on it. It has a lot of information about you on it. So you have to be very careful about filing by mail these days. E-filing is also faster. When we get a paper return, we have to enter that into our system. When it's e-filed, it just auto-magically appears, and we really don't have to touch it. So that's just another perk of e-filing. It's also going to speed up your refund. It's going to make it faster to get your refund because all of that is just going to populate, and that check will be going out faster. And hopefully it's not a check, you direct deposit it, and that's even faster. Also, something else, if you owe money, you can still e-file. You know, some people don't even think about that. They think, well, if I have to pay, I'm just going to paper file and send a check. But we have a way that you can e-file as soon as you want to. As soon as you have your return ready, you can e-file that return, and then there's a way for you to be able to pay, and you don't have to pay until April 18th or whatever the date is that year. So one of the other things is when you e-file, you get a confirmation that we've gotten it. So you know that it's here. With the mail, you don't always do that unless you do some special services at the post office. And then again, it's easy. You don't have to stand in line at the post office to make sure it's postmarked on time. So like I said, e-filing is our most favorite way to get a return. There's many programs and online services that can help you prepare your taxes and e-file them. And of course, we don't endorse any specific program, but I would encourage you to go onto our website, and that's what the next slide is going to tell you, that there is information on our website about free filing. So if you qualify, you can e-file for free. So if your adjusted gross income was $72,000 or less, you might qualify to file for free. You would need to go to the link on our website. You get a list then of partners who are willing for you to use their products to free file. So be sure that you use the links from our website, because if you go somewhere else, a lot of these software vendors do have versions of their programs that cost. So if you're wanting to e-file for free, make sure you use the information on our website just to make sure that it's going to be free for you. So the next thing that a lot of people want to know is, okay, I'm getting a refund, where is it? So don't expect to file today and go out Monday and find out where your refund is. That's a little too soon. So this is, again, on our website. It's on our landing homepage, and right in the center it says check your, it says 2020. This is an old screenshot, but it's still front and center on our page, so you can check your refund status. And that's the best way to do it. Like I said a while ago, you can call us. This is going to give you the same information. So that way you don't have to stay on the phone. You can just get online and figure it out. And you can keep checking every so often, and it kind of shows you the progress of where it is. And like I said, you can visit this to track your refund progress. It gives you updates. You know, you go in 1 week, and in a couple of weeks you go back in and you go, oh, well, my check's been sent, or it's been sent to my bank. So just keep in mind that if you e-file, it's about 7 to 8 weeks after you get the acknowledgement that we have your return. And the reason for that is that there is a lot of fraud and identity theft that is still going on. And so we want to take the time to make sure that when we send that money out, it's going to the correct person. We want to make sure that you're getting your money. So just be very aware of that. If you file on paper, you can expect your refund about 10 to 11 weeks after we get your return. And then if you have just moved to Idaho, and this is the first time you filed an Idaho return, then you're going to add 3 weeks to either one of those time frames. So if you e-filed, it's going to be about 10 or 11 weeks. If you file on paper, it's going to be about 13 to 14 weeks. So just be aware of that. And like I was saying earlier, you can get your refund faster by using direct deposit. It puts your bank information, but it doesn't, when you actually print a return, it doesn't actually put those numbers on there, because I've done that before. And so it's not, you know, it's not anything that we keep, number one. I've heard people say, oh, well, I don't want to give you my banking information because, you know, then you could, you know, you were talking about identity theft and all of that. And I'm like, yeah, but we don't, once it actually hits our system, we've generated that, that information is gone. We don't keep it like for next year. It's gone. You'll have to send it back to us next year. So what slows down your refund? If you paper file and don't send us your W-2s, your 1099s, you don't give us a federal copy, you have math errors, we can't read your handwriting, then that's going to slow everything down. And again, paper filing is always going to be slower because we have to data enter all of the information on that paper return. If you're e-filing, if there's any data entry errors, so say you have your W-2 and you transposed a number on your W-2. It's one way on your W-2, it says $3,120, but you put it as $3,210. So that's going to slow things down because then what's on your return doesn't match what's on your W-2. So we have to make sure that those are correct. If you haven't provided your ID, that's another problem. And then if you have claimed a dependent that somebody else has claimed, we were talking a little bit ago about if you go to a tax preparer that they're going to want to see those papers that have to do with your dependents if you are divorced. So if you and your wife both try to claim the dependent, then that's going to slow things down because we're going to see that Tommy was claimed on both mom's and dad's return. So both of those returns will be stopped, and then we have to figure out who gets to claim this dependent because not both of them get to. If you use an old address, we were talking about that a little bit earlier, so make sure you update those addresses. And then if you didn't verify your identity, so we have letters that we send out to verify your identity. If we have a question about whether it's really you filing this return, we'll send you a letter and say, hey, we need you to provide this information. So once we send that information to you, make sure that you go online, which you can go online and do that to answer those letters. So make sure you do that, and that will speed up your refund. So we were talking about paying your taxes. Tax returns are due this year, April 18th, and that is due to Emancipation Day, which falls, I believe, on Friday the 15th. And so that makes it due on the next business day after that, which is Monday the 18th. So if you're mailing your payment, make sure you include your voucher. There's a little voucher that you need to include with your check. If you're using direct debit, provide your bank account info and the date you want us to debit it. And you can do that at quickpay@tax.idaho.gov. That's just an easy way. You don't have to set up an account. All you have to do is go in and say, I want to pay X amount of dollars on this date. Give us where it needs to come from, what bank account, and we'll be able to do that. Like I said a while ago, that information, once it's in our system and once it goes out, it does not stay in our system. So there's no chance of it being stolen. The other thing I want to tell you is extensions. So people say, well, I can't really get my return done by the 18th. There's just stuff coming in that I know that's not in yet, and I can't really file it by the 18th. Okay, you can get an extension, but it just gives you more time to file, not to pay. So if you know you're going to have to pay, make sure that you at least pay something. If not everything that you think you might owe, because there will be interest on any tax that's not paid. And if you can't pay all at once, make sure you go ahead and file your return and then contact us. We'll be happy to work with you to set up a payment arrangement to get the payment in. But filing is important, and filing on time is important unless you're doing an extension, because if you don't file on time, you can get a late file penalty. So it's really important to make sure that you file. Again, we were talking a little bit about using a tax preparer. There are all kinds of places that you can check out preparers. Make sure that the preparer you're using is a reputable one. IRS.gov, you can find an enrolled agent there. Our State Board of Accountancy has a way for you to verify CPAs. There, of course, are national chains of tax prep firms. And then my favorite way is to get a recommendation from a friend or from your family. Somebody who's used this preparer before and has experience with the firm, and to me, it's just a good way to get a recommendation. And I do this not only for tax preparers, but for other things, for doctors or, you know, those kind of professionals that you need. So to me, that's always a good way. So some of the tips about choosing a tax pro, if I was going in to look for a tax pro, I would ask them if they e-file. Most of them do these days, and that's their preferred method to file is to e-file. I would ask them about their fees. You never go in somewhere and say, hey, you know, you take your car in and say, hey, just fix this. And then when they come back out and they say, oh, well, it's $5,000 to fix your car. We've already done it, so, you know, I need $5,000. You don't do that. You ask them first for a quote. It's like, okay, how much is this going to cost? So they should know a little bit about how much it's going to cost to file your return by the information that you bring with you. They know what kind of forms they're going to need to file. They know how complex or how simple it will be for them to file. So they should have kind of an idea. Don't ever sign a blank form, tax form, any kind of form. I mean, to me, that's just a good rule of thumb. You don't ever sign anything without knowing what you're signing. And then always review your return before you sign. And people said, well, that's why I went to a tax pro in the first place, because I didn't know how to prepare this silly thing. Well, yeah, but you kind of know. I mean, you can kind of go look at, does the amount of income on there look right? Did they put my correct banking information on it? Did they, you know, transpose a number, or did they just put a whole different number in there that maybe was their checking account number? So just always make sure that you look at the things that are on your return before you sign. Avoid any kind of a preparer that says, oh, well, I'll get you a refund of $500, but I'm going to have to charge you $300 to do that. Don't do that. Also, don't go to anybody who can guarantee that you're going to get a refund. They don't know that until they actually put all of that information into some software, until they actually get down to preparing your return. So I would avoid anybody that guarantees that they can give you a refund. And then again, like I said, make sure the refund's going into your account. Make sure they've got the account number right. Make sure they have the bank routing number correct. Make sure it's your money that's going into your account. So the other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is W-4s and Idaho withholding. And this has been kind of a subject that we have dealt with for the last, I don't know how many years it is now, ever since the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act happened. And the IRS changed their W-4s and changed the way that we do withholding, basically. Because before it was always when you go to a new job, you have to fill out all of these forms, right, when you start a new job, and W-4 is always one of them. And it was always, okay, how many exemptions do you have? Okay, it's me and my husband and my 2 boys. Okay, well, I'm going to claim myself, my husband's going to claim himself, and he's going to claim the 2 boys, so it's just me, right? Okay, well, that really doesn't happen anymore because the exemptions have kind of gone away for a few years. So here's what the federal W-4 looks like. They've changed it over the last couple of years, even after the Federal Tax Cuts and Jobs Act happened. So it's maybe a little bit easier now. But when all of that happened at the federal level, we in Idaho looked at the way that they were doing their W-4s and said, you know, what they're doing doesn't really work well for Idaho. So we did our own W-4. So you need to make sure that you fill out both a federal and an Idaho W-4. So you have the correct amount of withholding on both the federal and the Idaho level. If your employer doesn't have an Idaho W-4, you might introduce them to it and say, hey, did you know there's an Idaho one? And it's really easy. This is basically the only thing there is to it. There's a backside with the instructions, but it's a really simple form for you to be able to fill out. And if they don't know where to get it, again, it's on our website. Where it says update your W-4, you can click there, and it will send you directly to a page where you can get our W-4. We were talking about verifying identity. So it asks if you received a quiz or a PIN letter. And so that's when you need to actually send us that information. Again, like I said a while ago, it will speed up your refund. So make sure that you verify your identity so we can make sure that you're getting the money that is due to you. And again, safeguarding your information is a top priority for us. You can, as I said, go to taxable.idaho.gov and verify your identity. If you think you've been a victim of identity theft, you need to notify the IRS. They have a Form 14039, and you would need to fill that out, send a copy to the tax commission, or report it online. So that is still a very real threat that's out there. So just be very vigilant on that. And then there's also a way for you to stay informed. You can follow us now on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I was kind of floored the other day. I was like, we have a YouTube channel? When I first started at the Tax Commission, and I've been here almost 15 years now, and it's like we weren't able to go out to YouTube and look at stuff. It's like, are you kidding me? We would get in trouble for that. So it's kind of now that we have all of these channels and get all of the information out, but that is just the day and age we live in. That's how a lot of people get their information these days. So you can follow us there. We put out all kinds of information, so anything that has to do with tax guidelines, requirements, deadlines, you know, things that we send to news outlets. So you're able to do that. There's also tax newsletters that you can subscribe to. So just feel free to join those. And again, then, if you have any questions, so this first address, taxrep@tax.idaho.gov, is a mailbox where you can send tax questions. Anybody can send tax questions. You don't have to be a preparer. You just, you know, if you have a question that is not answered on our website, in our instructions, you just can't figure out the answer, send us a email. We'll be happy. We try to answer those within about 24 to 48 hours this time of the year, with the legislature in session and with tax season coming up. It gets a little hectic, but we'll try to answer you as quickly as we can. Of course, you can always call 208-334-7660. That is our taxpayer services line. They are our frontline defense people. They answer a ton of questions. There are people when you walk in our doors that you're going to see, and I sat with one of those gentlemen, I don't know, it's been a few years ago now, and I was amazed at the amount of questions, I guess. Not only that, but, you know, 1 minute he was answering a question about income taxes, and the next call he took, he was answering a question about fuel taxes. And then the next one was like sales tax. And I mean, it was just all over the board. So those people have a lot of knowledge. And if they're not able to answer your question, a lot of times they'll send it up to us. So whether it's a phone call, maybe they'll take your name or ask you to send us an email at tax rep, and then that comes up to us tax research specialists, which I'm one of those, and we will take the question and then answer it for you. You can always send us snail mail, of course. Here's our post office box, and for those of you who don't know, we used to be downtown at the old MK Plaza. We are now up at the HP campus on Chinden, kind of more centrally located maybe in the valley, especially for people who are in like Canyon County and stuff. So that's where we are now, but you can send us mail, and then you can also, like I've been preaching, tax.idaho.gov, there's all kinds of information there, and you can find where we have our local offices. We have offices around the state, so not only here in Boise, but we have one in Twin Falls, we have one in Pocatello, we have one in Idaho Falls, we have one in Lewiston, and we have one in Coeur d'Alene. So there are offices all around the state where you can drop off tax returns. You can go in and get information. You can go talk to auditors or whoever you need to. So I would make sure that you go out and look as to when they're open for traffic, you know, for you to come in and talk. But that is really all I have for today. So if anybody has any questions, feel free to either do taxrep@tax.idaho.gov, or Steve, I believe you can actually probably give them my email address if they would need to do that.
If you'd like me to do that, I can do so. I can post it in there.
That's
we also
fine.
have this chat box right down here. Nobody's using it right now. If you have questions right now, just type it in the chat and we'll get an answer to you. Thanks, Cynthia. That was fantastic. It is 1:54. Let's come back at the top of the hour, and we will listen to what Don has to say from the Taxpayer Advocacy Service. So that'll be at the hour for about 5 minutes. Does that sound like a plan?
Hi, Steve. Can you hear me?
I can. You're pretty quiet, but I can hear you.
Oh, okay. Let me try to bring my mic up. My headset's not all that. Is it a little bit better now?
A little bit.
Okay. So I will give it a go, and that's fine. Taxpayer advocacy, that's fine. That's what we do. So that works out well. Anyways, thank you, everyone, for joining us today. My slides say preseason, but this really is the filing season. It's the height of it, and so we're just doing some tax tips. Really just want to remind everybody of the most common errors that occur when filing federal tax returns, provide tips on how to avoid these pitfalls. I am the local taxpayer advocate here in the state of Idaho. I represent the Taxpayer Advocate Service, an independent organization within the IRS. We provide problem resolution services and advocacy services to those who've been unable to resolve tax issues with the IRS on their own. My presentation, I'll talk about some family and other refundable credits, common errors that may be easily preventable, some IRS accessibility products that are now available, and finally a couple of slides about TAS, who we are, what we do, to keep in for future reference in case you or someone you know runs into an issue with the IRS that you're not able to resolve on your own. Oh, and I forgot where the little arrow was. Oh, there we go. Okay, so I'm sure everyone is eager to file your taxes. You have a refund coming, you're definitely eager. And get any refund that's really due to you. But before you get started, I just want you to follow these tips to prevent common errors that really delay return processing, refund delays, so that your tax return is ready to go, you file it, and you get your refund quickly. I will give you some points to illustrate. Just a couple of notes that I popped into my notes this morning about the current existing IRS backlogs. These are good to know or be aware of as you file your return. As of March 4th this year, the IRS still had a backlog of 7.2 million unprocessed returns. Some unfortunately received as far back as April of 2021. This includes 4.2 million returns that have required special handling, manual reviews, for instance, and stopped for the errors that I'm going to talk about. As of February 26th, the backlog for our Form 1040, the amended tax returns, is approximately 2.1 million. And employer returns, there's a backlog there, 2.5 million, 941 employer returns from last year that are still waiting to be processed, and another 360,000 amended 941 returns that are on hold until the original returns process. So there is quite a delay. And then finally, incoming correspondence, IRS correspondence, is estimated to be at roughly 4 million pieces of incoming that is still backlogged. It's one of the reasons we feel so strongly at TAS that we want to bring these reminders to you to help avoid these delays whenever possible. So let me begin. Always use the information reported on any year-end income statement, such as Forms W-2, Form 1099, Schedule K-1s. I'll explain a little bit why in a moment, but your employer generally has until January 31st to send the year-end wage-related statements to you. Typically, forms start arriving by mail right after the beginning of February. Some employers also send them digitally. Be aware that your last pay stub may not match your W-2 because of year-end corrections by the payer. If you use that pay stub information instead to file early and it doesn't match, it'll cause a delay in processing of your tax return. There are some additional tips to ensure that you receive timely and accurate statements. You should confirm that each payer has your current address before the end of the year. Review all the forms that come in for accuracy as you get them. If you find discrepancies, contact that payer immediately and request the payer to issue a corrected statement as soon as possible. If you're unable to obtain your year-end income statement from your employer, you can call the IRS for assistance. There are backlogs on the phone assisters, but the 800-829-1040, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Monday through Friday. But however, you have to wait until the time frame that they have to issue it before you call for help. But we're past that. I mean, that was the end of January. So I want to talk a little bit about the IRS Integrity and Verification operations. Simply, it is income matching, income and withholding matching. The IRS compares the income and withholding reported on your tax return to the Forms W-2 and other information returns that the IRS gets from employers and financial institutions. They want to ensure, like Cynthia said, that accurate returns are processed. They help to identify fraudulent refunds before the refunds are actually issued out the door. But the IRS computer systems compare the income that you report that's been reported to the IRS, like I said. When the withholding doesn't match, or the income and withholding doesn't match, or one or the others, what the IRS has on file, it will stop your return. It will cause a delay, and it may be a lengthy delay. For example, if you report like $300 of federal withholding on your return, but your employers reported only $30 of the federal income tax withholding, the difference can cause your refund to be delayed, and as it doesn't match what was reported to the IRS, and the delays can be very lengthy. This is why it's so important to review your payer information forms when you receive them. That way you can contact them to get the correction process started as soon as possible. And if you get the discrepancy resolved before filing your return, and any refund will not be delayed when the verification process is completed. Checking name spellings, taxpayer identification numbers, Social Security numbers, ITINs, adoption taxpayer identification numbers, ATINs, dates of birth, addresses, your bank account information is very important. Check that for accuracy. As I mentioned, if any of these items are incorrect on a payer statement, contact the payer as soon as possible. Please note that you must have a valid Social Security number for your dependents before filing, or you may not only delay processing of your tax return, but in certain instances, it can disqualify you from some refundable credits, like the Earned Income Tax Credit, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. For example, if you have a new baby, apply for that Social Security number or with the Social Security Administration, or the ITIN number with the IRS as soon as possible. Both of these processes take some time, so start the process as soon as you can. To help prevent identity theft, you can apply for our Identity Protection Personal Identification Number, IP PIN for short, if you choose to. The IP PIN is a 6-digit number that prevents someone else from filing a tax return using your Social Security number or your ITIN number. It's known only to you and the IRS. It helps us verify your identity when you file your electronic or paper return. And the fastest way to receive an IP PIN is by using the online Get IP PIN tool. The IP PIN is generally available starting in mid-January through mid-November. And for more information, you can just go out to the irs.gov website. So review the tax form instructions to ensure that you're claiming all the deductible items and credits for which you're eligible for. A lot of the eligibility requirements for these items often change every single year. The forms and formulas used to calculate them can be complex to complete as well. Generally, family-related credits and deductions are the areas we see the most errors, and one of the main reasons after income and wage mismatches that I just mentioned that cause return processing slowdowns. So follow the instructions carefully, double check, triple check your entry information, and always recheck your math. Talk a little bit about the family-related credits. Again, review the tax form instructions. If needed, consult a tax professional to ensure that you're correctly claiming all the deductible items and credits for which you're eligible. Be aware that irs.gov has several interactive tax assistant tools, online tools that will help you determine, one, if you're eligible for a particular credit or deduction and for how much. Many will also tell you what form or schedule to claim them on and link you to more detailed information on how to do that. And I've got the links here, and I think they were available for download as you entered the meeting today. So we'll talk about the economic impact payments, the third one, sometimes called those stimulus payments. I got information here on the link, or links on this slide, excuse me. But the EIP payments in 2021 was $1,400 per person, $2,800 if married filing joint for 2021, plus $1,400 for each qualifying dependent with a valid Social Security number issued by the Social Security Administration before the due date of the return, including extensions, or adoption taxpayer identification number. If you did not receive the full EIP during 2021, you should have received a notice 1444 showing the amount received. If you've misplaced it, you can find the amount of the EIP that you received. You can go to irs.gov, search for Get Transcripts. They can be viewed online or sign up to view your IRS account online. You can search for View Your Account Information to find the sign-up page. You do not need to complete any information about the recovery rebate credit if you've received your full amount of your third EIP for which you qualified. If you did not receive your EIP but you received a notice saying a payment was issued to you, we recommend going to the irs.gov EIP FAQ page for instructions on how to trace the payment. You'll have to either call, there's a number to call. You can fax a form 3911 to initiate a refund trace, but you must request the trace immediately as it takes time for this process. And I think that was another one of the IRS's delays. It's now, right now, taking over the normal 90-day time period to do refund traces. But if it's not completed before filing your tax return, it will stop your return and delay it because the amounts don't match the IRS, what the IRS records show. However, if you did not, or if you did not receive a payment at all in calendar year 2021, payment amount was not correct, but you qualify, you can now claim it as that recovery rebate credit. It's on your Form 1040 individual income tax return or the 1040 SR return for seniors. We'll talk a little bit about the advanced child tax credit. The credit for the American Rescue Plan of 2021 increased the amount of the child tax credit and made it refundable for tax year 2021 only. Was $3,000 for qualifying children between ages 6 to 17 years old at the end of 2021, and $3,600 for qualifying children age 5 and under at the end of 2021. Taxpayers may have received up to 50% of the child tax credit in advance monthly payments between July and December of this last year. The increased child tax credit is phased out for income for taxpayers with modified adjusted gross income over certain limits. Taxpayers had the option to unenroll if they did, or opt out if they didn't want to receive those advance payments. And the credit is claimed or reconciled on the Federal Form 1040 series, Form 8812. Know that there is that advanced child tax credit eligibility assistant online tool on irs.gov as well. Currently, there's no credit calculation tool for the credit amount to claim on the return, but the tool itself is helpful. But like the third EIP, this credit will also be able to claim or reconciled if you received those advance payments on that year 1040. In January 2022, the IRS sent out letter 6419 to provide the total amount of advanced child tax credit payments that were dispersed in 2021. Keep this letter. It'll help you reconcile. There is one warning, though. If a married filing joint, both spouses will get a letter with only half of the advanced amount of the advanced child tax credit payments on there. So that's something that the IRS is aware of. It's already confused some people, but keep that in mind. You have to add those amounts together. If the amount of your child tax credit exceeds the total amount of your advanced child tax credit payments, you can claim the remaining amount of your child tax credit on the 2021 return. If you received a total advanced child tax credit payments that exceeds the amount of the credit that you can properly claim, you may need to repay the IRS some or all of those excess payments, which is a reason that a lot of people opted out. Again, there is a tool online at the irs.gov. They have their frequently asked questions that have a lot of awesome information. I'll talk about it for one more slide. When completing the Form 8821, you must enter the total advanced child tax credit payments that you and your spouse, if filing joint, received for 2021. Again, you see those letters, the 6419 for the amounts to include in this line. If the amount does not match the amounts reported to you and your spouse, if filing joint, the processing of your return will be delayed. If you're missing that 6419, you can see the federal tax return instructions before entering any amount, or go to irs.gov advanced child tax credit and the FAQs again for more information about how to reconcile. If someone needs to know how to trace any of these payments, say they're missing, they never received them, there is a tax tip with instructions on how to trace the advanced child tax credit payments that were missing on our website. It's taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov. And you can just pop it into the search bar. So we'll talk a little bit about the Earned Income Tax Credit. I'll do a real quick refresher. It's always important to keep the EITC requirements in mind, as a lot of tax return errors involve claiming this credit and the related filing status incorrectly. Not only does the earned income, but other taxable income also figure into the AGI claimed on your return. The AGI must be the same or less than a specific income amount every year. The tables are out and available on the IRS.gov website. They vary from year to year. Their income limits also change based on the number of children that are being claimed and the different filing status selected. Then there's another online tool, it's an awesome one, EITC Assistant, on the IRS.gov webpage. The assistant is also available in Spanish for those who need it. Just by answering questions, providing basic income information, you can use that assistant, find out if you're eligible for the EITC, determine if your child or children meet the test for a qualifying child, and it even estimates the amount of your credit. If you have your spouse or anyone being claimed for EITC, it's important to note that you must all have Social Security numbers that are valid for employment before the due date of the return. If you don't have it before you file, you may not be able to go back and claim it later. The American Rescue Plan made several significant enhancements to the EITC for 2021. It temporarily expanded the so-called childless EITC, overall making the credit more widely available by broadening the age range for eligibility. For filers claiming the credit without a qualifying child, the minimum age to claim the credit was lowered to 19. For former foster youth or qualified homeless youth, the minimum age was reduced to 18. And for specific students, the minimum age was lowered to 24. Additionally, the law eliminated the maximum age to claim the credit. Filers can no longer need to be under age 65 to claim the credit without a qualifying child in 2021. And we do know that there's a lot of grandparents and other relatives that are caring for younger children, and as rightfully so as exemptions. Married filing separate is the only filing status that does not generally qualify for the EITC, but there is an exception for 2021 and beyond when married filing separate is allowed under the American Rescue Plan. You must be a U.S. citizen or resident alien all year. If you and your spouse, if married, were a non-resident alien any part of the year, you cannot claim the EITC. Unless your filing status is married joint, then you can use that filing status only if one spouse was a U.S. citizen or resident alien. They choose to treat the non-resident spouses as a U.S. resident, making all of the worldwide income taxable. You may need more information. You can use Pub 519, the U.S. Tax Guide for Aliens. If you have foreign income that's reported on a Form 2555, foreign earned income, or the 2555-EZ, this will disqualify you from receiving the earned income tax credit. As I mentioned, there are many instances where you may still qualify for the credit even if you don't have a child, if you have a grandchild living with you. So see if you meet those rules for those without a qualifying child or have a qualifying child in special circumstances. In a moment, I'll provide some good resources for you to refer to if you're considering taking this credit. So you need to show proof of earned income. Oops, I missed. Show proof of earned income, have investment income of $10,000 or less, have a valid Social Security number, meet the adjusted gross income for your filing status, be a U.S. citizen or resident alien all year. There are consequences that can occur for incorrect EITC claims, and those can include delay of the earned income tax credit part of your refund until the error can be corrected. If that happens, the delay can take up to several months. They can deny all or part of the EITC, and if denied, you must pay back the amount that may have been paid in error plus interest. You may need to file a special form, 8862, information to claim refundable credits after a disallowance in the future. If the error is because of reckless or intentional disregard of the rules, the IRS could ban you from claiming the EITC for the next 2 years. If they find the error is due to fraud, the IRS could ban you from claiming the earned income tax credit for 10 years. So just go over the common errors. Well, some of the rules regarding EITC have changed recently, like the Social Security requirement before filing that I just mentioned. Here's something that has stayed constant over the years. Each year, unfortunately, we continue to see the same types of errors around EITC eligibility. Improper EITC payments remains a huge issue every year. Common errors: claiming a child who does not meet the residency and relationship requirements. The biggest dollar amount of errors is someone claiming a child who's not their qualifying child. So we recommend reviewing the eligibility options carefully to ensure that your child's relationship to you is one of those eligible options, and determine whether the child lived with you for more than half of the year. Next big error identified is incorrectly reporting income or expenses, particularly on a Schedule C. We're already starting to see some cases where 2021 returns are being pulled into exams because of this error this year. The third most common error is filing single or head of household when married. Make sure you claim the right correct filing status. And last but not least, we see errors causing the name and Social Security numbers to not match with the IRS and Social Security Administration records, and this continues to be a big problem. Let's talk a little bit about other credits and deductions. The link on the bottom of the slides to the IRS's credits and deductions webpage, which includes the most common ones, but not necessarily all of the ones available. I won't go through all of them, but I'll review a few that we commonly see errors made on. The credit for other dependents is tax credit available to taxpayers for each of their qualifying dependents who can't be claimed for the child tax credit. The max credit amount is $500 for each dependent who meets certain conditions. Dependents who are 17 years or older, dependents who have individual taxpayer identification numbers, dependent parents or other qualifying relatives who are supported by the taxpayer, dependents living with the taxpayer who aren't related to the taxpayer. The credit begins to phase out when the taxpayer's income is more than $200,000. Phase out for married filing joint is at $400,000. But the taxpayer can claim the credit if they claim the person as a dependent on the taxpayer's return. They cannot use the dependent to claim the child tax credit or the additional child tax credit. And the dependent is a U.S. citizen, natural or resident alien. Education expenses. Schools, as a reminder, schools have until January 31st, like the W-2s for employers, to provide this form to you. It can be provided by mail or electronically. If not received by early to mid-February, you need to reach out to that institution to get a copy. We have seen several cases in the past where the credit was claimed when a tax return preparer completes a return, but the taxpayer never actually attended school. Again, double-check any and all credit claims on the return, especially if somebody else is preparing it for you before signing it. Ultimately, you're going to be responsible for everything on that tax return. So a little bit about the charitable contribution deductions. Non-itemizers can qualify or claim $300 for cash contributions made to qualifying charities during 2021. The maximum deductions increased to $600 for married filing joint returns. Itemizers limits typically range from 20 to 60% of adjusted gross income and can vary by the type of contribution and the type of charitable organization. For calendar year 2021, qualified contributions taxpayers can apply up to 100% of their AGI. The premium tax credit. Also known as the PTC, refundable credit that helps eligible individuals and families cover the premiums for their health insurance purchased through the health insurance marketplace. For 2021, the law now allows for expanded eligibility for the PTC by eliminating the phase-out for households with an annual income above 400% of the federal poverty level. Now provides taxpayers who received unemployment compensation or who were to receive unemployment compensation in any week in 2021 are generally eligible to claim the credit. In certain circumstances, you may qualify to get an advance payments of this credit. And if you do get the benefit of the advance credit payments in any amount, you must reconcile the total credit that you're eligible for on the Form 8962 and include that with your tax return. File it. Marketplace will generally send you the Form 1095A out usually by January 31st. This will help you reconcile the advance credit payments on that Form 8962. The 1095A doesn't get attached, but the 8962 does. You must meet certain requirements, file an individual tax return, 1040, 1040NR, or 1040SR with that Form 8962 attached. Similar to the year-end statements that I mentioned earlier, filing your return without reconciling your advance payments or when claiming the PTC may delay your refund and in this case may affect future advance credit payments as well. Any missing attachment, the IRS will stop the return, correspond with you to secure the completed form before they can finish processing that return, and that will be a significant delay. A reminder, attach all required forms and schedules before you submit your return. Like Cynthia said, she puts all of her information in an envelope. Definitely gather all your records first. Make sure you have those documents that support every single amount of income, deductions, or credits that appear on your tax return. Developing that record system is extremely important. It may include a software program for electronic records or a filing cabinet, or like Cynthia said, a big envelope each year. Having those records readily at hand makes preparing your tax returns much easier and go quickly. If there is any income document that shows federal income tax was withheld, it must be attached to your return. This could, if you're filing by paper, if you're filing electronically, you can just follow the software provider's instructions, but that includes W-2s and 1099s. Remember, your last paycheck stub is not a guarantee to be an accurate statement of your annual earnings and could be missing some information that you need to file an actual or accurate tax return. And again, may delay your processing of your return. Let's see. Oh, if you received unemployment compensation, some states do not mail that Form 1099-G out. It's only available electronically, but it needs to be accounted for and reported on your tax return. So you can obtain that online if they haven't sent it to you already. Let's see, taxpayers who received a federal tax refund in 2020. We had many delays. We still have many delays. So the IRS and federal government is having to pay refund interest. That refund, the interest on the refund, is taxable and must be reported on your federal income tax return. The IRS has sent out the 1099 INT to anyone who received interest totaling $10 or more. So you should have already received that. When claiming certain credits, as a lot of them require a specific schedule or form to be completed and included with the tax return. For each credit or deduction claim, check the form's instructions when an additional schedule is required to be completed. If the schedule needs to be submitted and or if the schedule needs to be submitted when filing or submitting your return. So just a little bit about finding tax return preparer help. Cynthia mentioned the resources available at the Idaho State Tax Commission. The IRS also has free filing available on our the front of our the first page at the irs.gov. If you meet certain income qualifications, you can get free tax help from trained volunteers, the IRS Volunteer Income Tax Assistant, VITA, and the Tax Counseling for the Elderly, TCE programs. Both offer free tax help taxpayers who qualify. VITA sites offer free help to people who need assistance preparing their own tax returns, people who generally make $57,000 or less, people with disabilities, and limited English-speaking taxpayers. The TCE program offers free tax help, particularly for those who are 60 years of age or older. They really specialize in questions and information about pensions and retirement-related issues that are unique to seniors. definitely before you go to a VITA or a TCE site, go to the irs.gov and see what documents you should bring with you so you don't have to make a second trip. If you want to get the help of a professional tax preparer, there's an option too. You can go and do your own research online. Like Cynthia said, again, reiterating, somebody you know has had good customer service with a tax preparer. Word of mouth is an awesome way to find somebody who's reputable. The IRS also provides a tax professional locator tool. It's called the Directory of Federal Tax Preparers with credentials, and you can select certain qualifications that are important to you. Anyone can be a paid tax return preparer as long as they have an IRS PTIN number, Preparer Tax Identification Number. However, tax return preparers have different levels of skills, education, and expertise. E-filing, whenever possible, we always recommend electronic filing your tax return. It is faster, is more accurate, and more secure. If you've been hesitant in the past to switch over from paper, now's the time to make the move. There are many choices when it comes to using personal tax return filing software, TurboTax, TaxAct, H&R Block, Online, Jackson Hewitt, TaxSlayer, etc. If you don't qualify for free tax help, or you just want to complete the return yourself, those software companies are usually the best way to go. Most will walk you through every step-by-step, completing all the forms, ask you questions, and can be done on your personal computer. Some can be used on your mobile phones. One caution when using this type of software is if you're using the same software program you used last year, and I think most of them have corrected this issue, but you want to check that only the current year information is present and that the prior year tax data didn't get pre-populated. Again, double checking your figures before you hit submit. In 2020, for instance, you reported wages $25,000. 2021, you had wages of $30,000 from the same employer. Some software used to have a glitch where you'd input your current year, the wages of $30,000, and the prior year data would roll over, and you'd have an additional amount of wages and withholding that was incorrect and overstated. Again, I think most software providers have corrected those glitches, but it's always good to be aware of your income information as you're inputting it. Direct deposit. So direct deposit, any of the tax return filing options, including paper returns, allow you to choose to have your refund direct deposited. It's free to you, and it's the fastest way to get your money. You can split your refund, federal refund, into 1, 2, or 3 financial accounts. You can buy savings bonds too. You just go to irs.gov and search the words direct deposit to get more information. Again, I can't emphasize enough how important it is, especially this year with the backlogs, to use the e-filing option and direct deposits. There are options too online at the irs.gov for those that don't have a bank account and want to open one so that they can have a direct deposit. Let's see, filing, with the IRS, some of the addresses. The IRS, before the pandemic, was shifting around and closing some campuses, and that being said, they continue to do so during the pandemic, and they've also changed some of the addresses where you can still send your returns. But to be aware of it, the error rates, I mean, you could still file a paper return. The error rates on paper returns are so very high. Simple math errors are common. We recommend double checking your arithmetic, triple checking. In addition, with the pandemic is still affecting both the IRS and TAS, paper returns are some of the last items to get processed. And it'll delay any refund that you much longer than if you had electronically filed it. If you're filing paper, again, be aware that the IRS recently changed a few of the return mailing addresses along with its P.O. box addresses, so double check those as well. I believe that they are, or after January, they've already started returning to sender some of those P.O. boxes that were closed. I think one in San Francisco, California, and Hartford, Connecticut were 2 places that they're returning returns from. we'll talk a little bit about language accessibility information. If you need instructions or notices in your language, if you speak a different language, if you need interpreter help or need other IRS or TAS communications in a different format, I'll kind of walk you through what's available and how to request it real quick. So multilingual services. We know that tax information can be hard to understand in any language. It can be even harder if that information isn't offered in the language that you know best. IRS is now translating tax resources into more languages. I think IRS.gov offers basic tax information, English plus 20 other languages right now. You can just look for the listing of the languages near the top right of each IRS.gov webpage, the online tools, and then click on the link for the language that you need. You'll also find many IRS tax forms, schedules, publications, and social media channels in multiple languages. TAS's website right now, our resources are currently limited to English and Spanish. Don't forget, we have low-income taxpayer clinics, or LITCs. They're also available to represent low-income individuals who have a tax dispute with the IRS. They also provide education, outreach to individuals who speak English as a second language. The services are provided for no more than a nominal fee, and in some cases they are free. If you have a language preference, the IRS has a Form 1040 Schedule LEP, Request for Change in Language Preference, which allows taxpayers to ask for information from the IRS in their preferred language. There are 20 languages that you can choose from besides English. Just complete the form and file it with your individual tax return. The form's available in English and Spanish on the IRS Forms and Publications site, irs.gov. You can just search it, put it Forms and Instructions. If you e-file Schedule LEP, you don't need to file the paper version. E-filing it and including it is enough. The IRS has updated this form, so the 2021 version may look slightly different than what I've got on this screenshot. Also know about interpreter services. If you can't find the answers to your tax questions in your language on irs.gov, the IRS can offer you help in more than 350 languages with the support of professional interpreters. We call this our OPI. For assistance in English and Spanish, I've got the numbers there, 800-829-1040. All other languages, 833-553-9895. IRS can also provide an interpreter, or the OPI, services for most of the taxpayer-facing functions, including taxpayer assistance centers, which are the walk-in areas in some of the federal buildings, during IRS exams in person, and for questions over the telephone related to a correspondence exam, for instance, when dealing with an IRS representative discussing tax collections, as well as for appeals meetings and conference calls. So if you need an interpreter to help you understand, ask the IRS employee to use the over-the-phone interpreter service option, the OPI. It's available 24 hours, 7 days a week, and is free of charge. A little bit about accessible tax products. There are available options for obtaining accessible tax products. If you need a product in an alternative format, you can download it from the Accessible Forms and Publications page on irs.gov. or request paper copies in Braille or large print by calling the tax form telephone number 800-829-3676. If you do call that, the individuals who are answering those phones do not have access to IRS sensitive tax information. They're only there to help you obtain the accessible tax products that you need or want. So once an election is processed, the IRS will send a standard print copy of a notice along with the alternative media copy and any attachments enclosed with the written communication in that alternative format as well. Be aware that the IRS has already sent the letter 9000 in both English and Spanish between September 15th and October of last year to anyone who claimed the additional standard deduction for the blind on their tax return within the last 2 years. The letter provided the details about the new Form 9000 and includes information about the various ways that you can submit your election to the IRS, shown on the slide here. Again, you can call the accessibility hotline or helpline at 833-690-0598 with questions on IRS accessibility services, but they do not have access to taxpayer account information and can't answer tax-related questions. I do have two more slides just to give you an insight about TAS. I wanted to stop and see if there was any questions, and it doesn't look like there are. So 2 more slides, bear with me, please. On our website, taxpayeradvocate.irs.gov, has self-help information on many tax-related process or topics with step-by-step instructions on how to work the problems through with the IRS on your own. Our website's designed to help taxpayers and tax professionals alike. Parts of it are available, again, like I said, in Spanish as well as English. You can even view it on a mobile phone. The website screenshot on the slide shows the main Get Help page. As you can see, we've got a search box section, and we have a what if by category, by alphabet options to look up your exact issue. Not every topic is shown on the screen. There are many more that you can choose from, and we're improving it all the time. Not shown is a section of our digital tools called estimators, and we have a TAS qualifier tool now that's brand new that can help you with determining eligibility for certain healthcare related tax credits, estimate the total credit that you may claim, and then lastly at the bottom of the page are 2 buttons that'll take you to a listing of your rights as a taxpayer and a contact us page, which brings up a map of the United States. You pick the state that you're in, and it'll bring up that local taxpayer advocate service office contact information. But if you use the other tools, you can choose the topic closest to the issue that you may be having. You'll see some information kind of laid out in the following format. What do I need to know, which gives you a description and explanation of the issue. What should I do section that explains the steps that you can take to resolve that issue. How will this affect me section explains how the issue may affect you or your account and what might happen if you don't take any action at all. There's a wait, I still need help section that lists other options for how and where to get help. A resources and guidance page that gives you a listing of all the resources available that relate to that specific issue. Ones that have more information about the topic, ones that link to other forms and products that you may need to help you take the actions that you may need to. There is an important taxpayer rights section that describes your rights as a taxpayer, specifically related to the issue that you've chosen. And lastly, there's a related content section that provides additional information on the topic in related articles. We're improving our website all the time. We also have the information about the free or low-cost services for the low-income and elderly taxpayers as well, should you need it, and much more. If you need help with federal tax issues, always try to resolve your problems with the IRS first. But if you can't, or if someone you know is unable to, then by all means, come to the Taxpayer Advocate Service. We help all types of taxpayers, including individuals, businesses, nonprofits. If you can't resolve your tax problem through normal IRS channels, again, we may be able to help. You may also be eligible for our help if your IRS problem is causing you financial difficulty or significant cost. If you qualify for our help, we assign a case advocate, and they'll be with you at every turn and do everything possible to resolve the issue. Our services are always free. It doesn't matter. There's no charges, no fees for help for anyone that we've helped. We have over 20 years of experience resolving IRS issues that allow us to be effective advocates for you. We also have a new online tool that can help you determine if it's time to call us for assistance. And it's just the TAS qualifier tool on our website. And I think this is the last slide. Again, we urge you to check out TAS's website or sign up to follow us on all the social media, just like the Idaho State Tax Commission, For more information about tax help and the latest tax-related news, we've got our website, the NTA blog that I highly recommend. You can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and LinkedIn. And then we also have a news page section. But I hope the information that I've shared today has been helpful. I thank you all for joining us today, and I hope you have a very successful tax filing season. Thank you again, and back to you, Steve.
Thanks, Don. That was some fantastic information. So the main takeaway that I get out of this from listening to these is that there are a lot of resources available to you. If you have any questions regarding anything in the Idaho State Tax Commission, anything with TAS, there are resources available to you. If you don't remember all of this, just remember that you can download this material from that link that you clicked on to get into the WebEx. Once you click get in WebEx, scroll down to the bottom, all of this material will be available there, and you can download it and just hang on to it. At this point, we're done with the webinar, so we're done for now. I am going to stop the recording, and then I have to process it. And then once I process it, I will send out an email with the link to that video. Probably not going to happen until tomorrow. It takes a while to process this thing. But thank you for joining, and I hope you have a great afternoon.